Hi there. Very good day to everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. In your human resource management, tonight's topic is the organizational culture. So when I mean organization, we mean the company. Okay, we know about the culture of different aspects. We know cultures of religions. Okay, different religions have different culture. There are certain things that matches with one another, and some other culture it doesn't match with one another. Okay, you have your dressing style, your food habits, your greeting styles, right? Whatever you take it, that differ religion to religion. So religious wise, we have Christianity, they have a culture. We have Islam, they have a different culture. We have Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism. If you take these different religions, they have different culture, they are different practice, different acceptances, and different denials of certain things. So we think this way. Culture is connected to the religion. The religion has influence on the culture. So we see differences when you practice your own religion. You can see it. Same way, when you take country-wise, we have English culture, we have Middle East culture, we have Asian culture, we have Indian culture, Pakistani culture, Maldivian culture, Sri Lankan culture. Of course, yes, we have different things. Culture-wise, we are different. And that is beautiful sometimes because some culture has certain values. The other culture may not have that. However, when you go enjoy, when you go and mingle with them, you would be enjoying their culture. So cultural difference is always beautiful. It's not about something that you hate or something that you don't like. It is beautiful. We have to have differences. That is when we can understand each other. So cultural differences. Okay, so culture differ religion to religion, country to country, region to region, language to language as well. Okay, you have French culture, English culture, right? We have different cultural differences based on the language we speak. Also, this is because language has influence on culture. Okay, so we are talking about this cultural definition of culture in terms of countries, religion, in big scales. But tonight we're going to talk about a culture of an organization. Any organization you work for, any organization you have access to, you may consider certain things that happens inside the organization that is accepted. Certain things that happens inside the organization are not accepted. This is what the culture is about. In those organizations, the religion doesn't play anything. The language that speak doesn't play anything, or many things, I would say. They develop some culture. Okay, but that cultural development may have some influence of the language, of the economy, of the market you work at, of the religion that you have. They're all having some factors that influences as well. Now, so this topic is limited to organizational culture. So we're not going to talk about a religion or country or region that way. We're going to talk about an organization. We take Microsoft. What is the culture inside? If you take Google, what is Google culture inside? What is the Apple culture? Okay, how about the McDonald's culture, restaurant wise? What is the culture there? Okay, so we have understanding of it. We'll have a look at some of those examples today. So now I have said about the organization. Now, what is the culture? That is the confusing words. People have confusion to understand what culture is about sometimes. If I ask the definition of it, most of you will have, all of you will have different wording of different definition of what culture is all about. Let me tell you simply my definition of culture now. The culture is about what we usually do and what is accepted usually to do. That is your culture. What is not accepted is against your culture. It is not your culture. So what you exactly do or what you usually do exactly on your daily routine, that is your culture. Okay, that is the culture is about. There's nothing more than that. If I give you examples on it, what time do you wake up? Okay, is it 5 o'clock? Is it 6 o'clock? Is it 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock? Whatever the time you wake up, it is your culture. How do you dress? That is your culture. How do you keep your face? Do you shave every single day morning or do you leave it to grow with beard? That is your culture. When you get into the office, how do you wear? Do you wear properly ironed shirt or do you wear a crashed shirt? That is your culture. Okay. And the culture as a whole, we can understand something in common. And the culture is, in fact, something connected to your individual personality as well. If I tell you this in a different way, let's say, for example, you take your family. You wake up at 5 o'clock every day morning, so that is your 5 o'clock morning time. Your brother wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It is his time. So your brother, your elder brother, wakes up at 4 o'clock. You are up at 5 o'clock. Your younger brother wakes up at 6 o'clock. So your culture is 5 o'clock. Your elder brother's culture is 4 o'clock. Your younger brother's culture is 6 o'clock. Right? This is your culture. So the time you wake up, that is part of your culture. The way you get ready, that is part of your culture. The food you eat in the morning, that is part of your culture. What do you eat? They eat bread and jam, butter, that is your culture. Some others, they eat rice in the morning, that's their culture. What do you take for your lunch? Do you take rice, biryani rice, or rice and curry, or some nasi goreng, whatever the food that you take, usually that is your culture, right? So whatever you eat, that's your culture. Now, let me come back to the three brothers story, the time they wake up early in the morning. Your elder brother wakes up at 4 o'clock, you wake up at 5 o'clock, your younger brother wakes up at 6 o'clock. Now, your mother knows your elder brother wakes up at 4 o'clock, you wake up at 5 o'clock, and your brother wakes up at 6 o'clock. This is the time. If your brother is late to wake up at 4 o'clock, if he wakes up at 5 o'clock, that is not his culture. And your culture, you wake up at 5 o'clock. And if you wake up at 4 o'clock, that is not your culture. And if you wake up at 6 o'clock, that is again not your culture either. So what happens if you just change your time of waking up yourself? If that differ, you are challenging your culture, you are deviating from your usual culture. That is the culture, right? Now, if your brother is late to wake up at 4 o'clock, if he is not up till 5 o'clock, your mother wants to go and knock his door and say, my son, how about you? Why are you late to be up? But you're sleeping still, it's 5 o'clock, not a problem to your mother because your mother knows you're at 5 o'clock, you're not at 4 o'clock. But if you wake up on a day at 4 o'clock, she's going to ask you, why are you up early? Because she wants to know, maybe you are not well, you are sick, you need some Panadol, or you are hungry, you need to have some coffee early today. Whatever, she would question you, what made you to be up 1 hour early? Because that is not your culture. Okay, this is the culture. This is what the culture is about. What you do, what do you wear to a wedding party? What do you wear for a funeral? What do you wear for a dinner dance? Okay, what do you wear for a pilgrimage? These are all connected to culture. What you usually do, what is accepted, that is your culture, right? Simply, that's a definition. Now, let me come back to some organizational stuff here to understand is how do you dress? Okay, Sri Lankan Airlines, Sri Lankan, they are here like this. This is their dress. Okay, if you take British Airlines, British Airways, that's the dressing code. Okay, or dress code. But now, if we go across the white woman working for British Airways, she appears in the aeroplane on board in sari, and Sri Lankan lady, she appears in her trousers and shirt and the top with the bow on board in her airlines. If she appears that way, what's going to happen? This is what the question you have to answer. Okay, this is not your culture. Nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. British Airways allows this decent. That's decent dressing. Your trousers and your skirt on the top and the cap with the bow and things like that. So that is your culture. There's nothing wrong with it. It's properly disciplined dressing style. No problem with that. And coming in sari, there's nothing wrong. But if you practice across, okay, you wake up at 4 o'clock, your brother wakes up at 5 o'clock, you're practicing cross practice. That will be a question to the others. Why this English woman is in sari today? Why Sri Lankan ladies are in trousers and shirts today? Okay, this is what the culture is about. Right, that's the basic definition. Now, let's go here. When the culture differ, we have different cultures for different organizations. We have different culture for different markets. We have different cultures for different countries we sell. Now look at this. What is this? Okay, if I ask anyone, what do you understand from this body language? One of you would say uh, he is a Japanese and he is respecting someone, he's greeting someone. Okay, Japanese. But how do Japanese greet someone? This is how they do. We call bowing. They bow, they bend themselves to invite someone, to respect someone, to receive someone, to welcome someone, to greet someone. Yes. Okay. But in English culture, you don't do this. In American culture, in Western part of the world, you don't do this way. If you do this way in Western culture, in US culture, it means you are apologizing for the mistake that you have done. Have you ever seen any boxing games? If you punch a foul punch, a wrong punch, if it is against the rule of the game, you always make sorry to your opponents. You say sorry to your referees and the judges. And how do you do it? You do this. Okay, you bow and say, I'm sorry. So to apologize, we use this kind of body language as well. Okay. So in American culture, this is about apologizing. In America, USA, apologizing, USA. And in Japanese culture, this is about respecting someone, greeting someone. That is what the meaning of this, right? Okay, so one same thing, one same body language has different meaning in different culture. We have to understand this. I have a case study here. Citibank, you might have heard of this. This is the largest bank in the world at a time. Sometimes back, I don't know who now. During the 2008 periods, 2008 economic recession period, so many financial institutions were closed. They filed bankruptcy in the US and in western part of the world. Credit crunch, we call it. That's not the topic today, so I'm not going to discuss about what that was. But anyway, at that time, so many financial institutions shut their doors to their customers. They shut their flow to their customers, no customers, because the company is out of business. They went bankrupt. Okay, Citigroup was operating in Japan at that time, and the company also made losses in Japan. So Japanese customers, they made lots of investment in Citigroup, and Citibank took their money and they used that money for financial investments, and they made some profit for Japanese customers. But during the 2008 recession, the bank in Japan, they also almost went out of business, or they lost their business as well. So that the customers, they lost their money, right? That's the story. That's what happens. Now, to console this situation, two Citigroup head of the departments from the US, they went to Japan. Okay. And when they see the Japanese delegates and their customers, they did this. They bowed to them. Okay. So if you do this in Japan, you have two contexts in here. Number one, Japanese customers have been disappointed by the bank because their investment, their money, their deposits are gone. They lost it because the failure of the bank. Okay, that's gone. So for that, the Citigroup has to apologize. That's one thing. And the second context is when you meet your customers, when you meet your Japanese counterpart, you have to respect them. So that you have to do some bowing. So respecting your customers and your counterpart in Japan, you have to respect them. And the next thing is about to apologize for your customers. So they went to Japan. This is how they greet. I'm sorry. This is how they greet people. Bowing is what greeting is about. Okay. So they did this in Japan. So they wanted to greet their customers and the counterparts and the other people involved in the banking sector that as partners. When they do this, New York Times in US, they took the picture of these two guys and they published in New York Times and said, Citigroup is apologizing for the failure to Japanese customers. In fact, they greeted them, they respected them. The apologies will happen or may happen in a different way. This is not apologizing in Japan. So this is the misunderstanding of cultural differences. Okay, so We know what culture is about, and we know about the differences and the meaning, the problem of having differences in culture. One thing accepted in one culture is something not accepted in some other culture, not accepted in some other culture. So, as business people, we should be able to understand cultural differences. When I'm talking about human resource management practices, you would definitely have multiple nationalities, multicultural people. You may have people from different culture, different language, different nationality. If you take companies in Middle East is the place for the workers from all over the country, all over the world. In fact, you get people working from US in Middle East, in Dubai. You can get people to work in Dubai from UK, from Australia, from India, from Bangladesh, from Sri Lanka, any country you take, they have people. So in your workforce, in your organization, within your employees, you will be having the mixture of different nationalities, mixture of different cultural backgrounded people, mixture of different religious people, and how you going to handle. Because one culture you accept, the same thing you accept is not accepted by the others. How are you going to make it? You cannot have differences in terms of your culture inside your organization that will destroy your organization. You have to be united. So how are you going to manage your culture there? Okay. Right. Now, let me have one more example here to explain this even more. Uh, when you have different nationalities working together, this is a gesture. Okay, a body language. We do this. Right. Today, I don't know if you have seen, I have posted a status in my WhatsApp. It's gone out. That I had some workers to fix the roller shutter doors to the campus. So I was there having some discussion with them. And the guys have done certain works, but I wanted them to do something extra, something extra. So I spoke to him and I put my hand like the same gesture. I pleased him. Can you please do this work as well? It was late for them, but I pleaded them. I said, can you please do this? And I was using this one. So for me, if you keep your hand like this means, can you please help me? Can you please do this for me? Can you please get this work done for me? So I'm pleasing someone to give some help to me. This is what it means to me. That is why I use the same gesture here. Okay, tonight. Now, if you do this one, the same gesture, what is the meaning of this in Italian? What is the meaning of this in Egypt? What is the meaning of this in Greece? Okay. The meaning of the same gesture in Greece is to say perfect, great, top job. Okay. This is what they use. How do you do that in English culture? You show your thumb up. You put your thumb up and you say, it's great, great job. You have done it. But in Greece, they don't do that. They use this body language to tell everyone you've done a great job today. You have done it, you have achieved it, you have won it. Okay, you are successful today. That is what. So this just in my culture, that means to me to get some help from some others. Same gesture in Greece, that means to them to say, you've done a great job. It's perfect. And the same gesture in Italy, uh, to in Italy, that means what exactly did you mean? That is what it means. For example, let's say uh, if you say something, okay, and if you tell this to an Italian man this way, they understand that exactly what you mean. When you say exactly what you mean, they repeat the message. Let's say he said something you did not understand. So if you show this gesture to him, he would exactly repeat what he said in a different way to make you understand. Okay, he said some message to you. You did not understand what he meant. So you show this gesture to him, then he would understand that you didn't get what he said. So he would repeat that message again to you in a different way, maybe using some examples to teach you. So this asking a question to someone if you don't understand him to make you understand. That's the meaning of it. But in Egypt, they use the same thing to keep someone quiet. Let's say you have an argument with an Egyptian. If you want to please him to stop arguing, to keep him quiet, you show this to him. Can you please shut up? Can you please keep your mouth shut? Can you please close your mouth? Can you please stop talking? Can you please stop swearing that way? So one thing that means something to me in my culture, and that means three different things for these Italians, Egyptians, and Greece. And if you go to the other countries, they'll have different meanings definitely. So if you have Italian, Egyptian, Greece person, and me working in the same workforce, how do you use this gesture to talk to one of us, talk to all of us? How? As a challenge. All right. So we have to know the cultures of different things. Culture is always beautiful. Differences are beautiful. You have to accept this. Right. Okay. Now, okay. The next thing is about another example here. Uh, GABA is an USA brand. They pack food items for babies. Okay. So you have uh, differently flavored things inside. Okay. They pack food items, baby food items. That's what they say. Right now, when they do that packaging, they always put the picture of a baby to show the mothers, to show the parents that if you feed your baby with this, the baby will look like this, they will grow like this, they'll put on weight like this, they will get a healthy look like this, they look handsome, fair, this way, that way. They want to promote this to their parents. They keep the picture of a baby in the packaging. So parents would understand if my baby eat this, she or he will look like this. So let me buy it. That's the idea. But in most of the Western, in fact, the African countries, they also print pictures like this in their packaging. The reason they do is not because to show the parents that your baby will get baby will look like this. No, the reason why they print the picture of things in their packaging is to tell the customer what is inside. For example, if they are selling a toothbrush, they print the picture of the brush in the packaging so people will know brush is inside. If they are selling some uh, some confectionery, some toffees, in the toffee packet, they print a picture of a toffee on the packaging because tell the customers toffee is inside. The reason is because most of these African countries they can't read, so they communicate with them using images. Images, it's easy, anybody can understand. You may be an illiterate, you may not know how to read, write language, but if they show an image of it, anyone can understand. You don't need to know the language. If I show a picture of a mango in this world, everybody will understand that's a mango. Okay? And you use different names for it in your country. You don't need to know the language. If you show a mango to an African, he would recognize that's what it is. So they use printed images on packaging to make the customers to understand what is inside. So Americans are printing it because tell the customers who that is for. Okay. Africans are printing it because to say what is inside. Two different cultures here. Now, Ghana, if they bring the same packaging of this food item with a baby printed on the material into Africa, what would happen? What would happen? Africans, they may look into the packaging, they understand when they see the picture of a baby on the package, they would understand baby is inside. If I buy this, I'm going to eat a baby. So this is not for babies. This is for those who don't have babies. If you eat this, you'll get your baby soon. You'll make your wife pregnant, in other words. Right? So that's the difference. So in American culture, they print images. It's because to show them who that is for. In African culture, they do the same thing because tell the customers what is inside. What is inside. So if you bring this practice across, you make problem. So when you deal with your customers in the market, you have problems like this as well. Okay, there are so many examples. There are so many examples that we can look into. My screen is not working. I think I have to close this and I have to open it again. Can you please stay with me? I'll do that very quickly. Stay with me. I'm loading it again. My screen got stuck. Please bear with me. I'm uploading it. My screen froze. I don't know why. Right, sorry about this technological issue. That's beyond my control anyway. But apologies. Right, let me go to that. Right, so this is where we were. So now this is again another problem. If you have if you operate in different markets, different countries, different societies, you have to understand the customers as well. Okay, right. Now, as I said earlier, we have different cultures, and this culture is influenced by different factors. And I talked about the religion before. So religion is one of the factors that influence your culture. Language, of course, yes. The economical philosophy, the social status, yes. Education, educated society have a culture, and uneducated society have a different culture. Okay, so what you do in your educated culture is totally different to what is happening in uneducated literate culture. So we know that because education has big influence on modifying your culture. So yeah, right now let me go back to this right now. I have a few points in here. The language. Let me have a couple of points in here as well. In language. The language has different culture. The language has influence on cultural development and modification, etc. Now here, I have an example to share with you. Now, when you talk about the ice, okay, ice means the frost, the ice cubes. That is what I mean by this. Now, when I mean ice, in your language, we have one or two words. We know about this. We say ice, snow, hailstone. There are words that we use. Hailstone is about something that comes from the sky. Snow means that is falling from the sky and that gets collected and it becomes isolated. Hailstone is something that falls from the sky directly as a stone. Snow is about that the snow falls and it comes together when they get tightened, when they get collected together strongly, then that becomes ice. And when you call ice, about you get inside your fridge. Okay, so these are the three, four words that we have. But if you go to the Eskimo language, they have 24 different words for snow, right? And all these 24 words are not equal to each other. 24 different things. Okay, when they mean ice, it has a meaning. When they say snow, it has different meaning. When they say hailstone, that is different. When they say frost on the road, that is again different. And all these 24 words are different to one another. If you go to Middle East, uh, if you talk about dates, they have over 30 varieties of dates. I don't know how many exactly, but over 30. Okay, and each variety has its own name. They never call using the common word dates. They call different words. They call uh, ajwa as one variety. That's one of the best varieties. If you eat that, your blood will get purified from oceans. Okay, and things like that. There are different varieties. They use those words. But when we speak, when we go to a date shop, we ask them for dates. Okay, we don't know the names of all those varieties because that language is not ours, right? So when you mean dates in those countries, they ask you what variety. You only know the name of a common name of date. That's it. You don't have any idea about the names of each and every variety. But when you talk about mango, we know there are varieties and we know the names of all the varieties because mango is from us. When they talk about mango, they generally call mango. They don't know the varieties of mango because in our language we have different names for different varieties of mangoes. The same way, when you speak different language have different things. Now you see the word private does not exist in many languages. Okay, but you have this meaning in English, you have this meaning in your own language sometimes, but this word doesn't exist in many languages. So when you want to convey some message to someone using the word private, if that language doesn't have that word for you to use it, how are you going to explain certain things that you want to explain to some other? You don't have the word for what you want to tell them. That is problem again. This is how this language is influencing culture. Now, in some other languages, if you take English and French, okay, you take English, okay, you take French. When you see two French people speaking to each other, you may feel that these two guys are speaking something secret. Sound doesn't come out. Again, they are closer to each other. They speak that in very little small volume, and they speak to each other. It seems that something secret is spoken in between those two, but that is how they speak. In some other language, if you speak a secret or you speak something friendly, others may feel that you guys are fighting to each other because the language, the sound you use, it seems fighting to the others. Okay. So these are all things. Now, how are you going to handle a French man, an Indian man, a Pakistani man, inside one workforce? They speak different languages. When you speak to a French man, if you use your language, he would think that all the times this guy is coming to me to shout at me, but you're not really shouting, you're speaking. That is your language. Okay. And when a Frenchman handles an Asian man, when he speaks his soothing voice, little small volume, you would think that this guy doesn't know how to speak loud. I can't hear him all the times. It's difficult to listen to him. His sound is very low and so on. So how are you going to manage? Right. Having said that, let me go to a theory, and that is going to be another 15 minutes. I'll be completing this. Right. A model to understand cultures of different organizations. So we know what culture is about. We know the differences of culture in a way. And you can read a lot. If you can cope up with different cultural aspects of different people, you can have many friends all over the world. You can have many business deals all over the world. You can get customers from all over the world because you value the cultures of the other. You should know this. You can get people from all over the world to work for you because you have the cultural value. You don't need to adopt their culture. You don't need to convert yourself to follow their culture. No, you respect the other's culture. And that's it. Okay, respecting others' culture. That's very important. Human being, we should not blame the others for their culture. We should respect. Right now, the theory here, Hofstad's. This was developed by this guy here, Hofstad's. His name is Hofstad. He developed this theory. He was working for IBM during the periods 1963 to 1973, and he sampled about 1,000 employees from IBM in 40 different countries. In different 40 countries, he sampled, he spoke to, he studied 1,000 employees working in IBM to understand the culture of organization. That is when he developed 4 dimensions here. All right, screen got stuck once again, but anyway, I'll be having this screen and I'll be continuing with what it is. All right, so 5 dimensions, in fact, 4 dimensions of culture. The first one was the power distance. The second one is the individualism and collectivism. Third one is the uncertainty avoidance. Fourth one is the masculinity and the feminism. Finally, long-term versus short-term orientation. Long-term and the short-term orientation was the later development. Initially, he developed the first 4 factors of culture. And after that, finally, he developed long-term versus short-term orientation as the 5th dimension, 5th factor. Let's have a look at these one by one. Power distance. When I mean power distance, how does that work? Power distance. What's the meaning of this? You see, in my experience, okay, in my lectures, I had students elder to me in my MBA lectures. Okay, I have students in my MBA lecture when I was teaching for London Metropolitan University's MBA program. Students in my class, they were elder to me, but when they call me, they say sir. They call me sir, right? But now I'm teaching for high national diploma HND programs. Youngsters, 17, 18, 19 years aged students, they call me Mr. Hazir. Okay, so earlier people elder to me, they called me sir, and this new generation, they call me Mr. Hazir. Now, what's the difference in here? Earlier days, when you were studying, the distance between a lecturer and the student was huge, big distance. The power distance. Teachers are like gods. You have to listen to what they say. You have to respect them. When you see them in the streets, you have to stop your vehicle. You have to get down. You have to say, "Hello, sir. How are you?" And then you go on. These are your respects. Right? But today, that has gone away, and the distance between a teacher and a student has been narrowed very much. It's very narrow. There's no space, I would say. We are on the same level. That's why they call you Mister. They call you, can I have a meeting with you tomorrow? You know, they just, whatever they wanted, they just straight away start and have a negotiation with you. There is no distance. Do you think that if I want to speak next year, I have to speak to him now that way? So the power distance. Now, let me bring this context to an organization. In an organization, your CEO, your CFO, your chairman, your boss, your manager, and your middle management, your bottom blue collar workers. You have different layers of employees, and how do you speak to each other? If you look at this in Asian part of world, the distance is a bit high. When you see your CEO, you have to respect. Otherwise, your job is gone. And if you want to speak to your CEO, you have to make an appointment and you go and say, sir, can I have a meeting with you? Then he says, okay. Then you go there, you never sit down in front of him, you stand and, you know, we have seen that because that happens because this distance is very high. But if you take the same context in the western part of the world, if you go to the UK university, UK organization, you don't have big distance like this. The CEO is not more than an employer. You just knock his door and say, mate, you want to take some holiday tomorrow? I'm going on a holiday for a couple of days, and can you please give me an apple? Okay, that's how you speak to a CEO. You don't have big distance there. And if the CEO wants you to do some extra work, he would approach you and say, mate, I need your work tomorrow. I need you to work on this project tomorrow? Can you please stay till late today, or can you please work tomorrow? And you take your day off later in a different day, and so on. He pleases you. And when he pleases you, you don't have any duty to listen to what he says. He will say, "No, I'm sorry, man. I'm going out tonight. It's Friday night. My girl is waiting. I'm not in the show. Please find another one." You just walk off. That's it. The distance is law. You would have seen this in the UK. You would have seen this in Canada. Right? That's the culture. Power distance. Now, when you have people from different culture, how are you going to handle these guys in the same workforce if you employ all of them? That's it. The next thing is about the individualism and collectivism. Individualism and collectivism is about, in some culture, people, they want to work for themselves and they don't worry about the others. Collectivism is about people, they are not happy when they get their things done only alone. They want the work done of the others as well. That is collectivism. Okay. Take an example. Usually I take this example here. If you have two brothers or three brothers at home, your mother cooks the meal for you. So she keeps the food on the table served, and all these three brothers, they come in different times. One brother comes in and he opens the cover and look at the meals on the table and says, "Okay, mom, can I have this food? How about the other brothers? Did they have their dinner?" Mother says, "Okay, the other one has to come late, and the younger brother already had it. The second brother is coming later. You can have your one." This brother looks into the food and divide that food among those two because he has to eat and his brother is on his way to eat. So he look into the other brother's belly as well. So he leaves the stuff for his brother. That is collectivism because he is not happy when he is full alone. He wants his brother to be happy as well. This is collectivism. Individualism is about the earlier brother. He came inside and he opened the cover and he took what he wanted and left what he didn't want to the others. He doesn't worry about the others. Okay, that is individualism because if his belly is full, he's fine. He doesn't worry about the others' belly. Okay, the same way that happens in human business as when you have your people inside. If you get your bonus, you are happy and you don't worry about the others. But some others, they are not happy when their colleagues also get the bonus. Okay, so in this context, how do you work? Uncertainty avoidance. Companies, they take risk. Business is all about risk. I met one of the CFOs, one of my students. In fact, I wanted to have some financial consultation from him for this campus. So I met him at 2 o'clock today at a lunch. I made an appointment with him for a lunch as well as the meeting discussion. And there he shared one story of his organization where he works for. Is that his boss has ordered 200 million worth of car on a loan. Okay, he's borrowing money from the bank. He's the financial head. His boss asked him, "I want a car, and this is the car. The price is 200 million. Can you please look at it? I don't know what car it is." Right then, he said, "Okay, I'll arrange the funds." Financial head, the group finance. Right, so he did it. Now this guy is taking risk. His business is on the way. Business is making profit, fine. But how is he going to pay this money and installments, paying huge amount of interest? These guys are ready to take risk. Okay. So in some culture, you take risk. And when he explained it, he said they have built a 9-floor building in one city to run a branch of their business, and he bought another land closer to the existing office in the main city as well that was bought for 500 million. So 5, 6 huge loans in the bank borrowings, and he is still keeping the business running. How risky it is. So in his culture, taking this kind of risk is nothing. He is used to it. So they do this kind of business. Whereas I have seen some other business, okay, you might know a company, Kapruka, that is operating in western part of the world, in US mainly, and their back office is based in Sri Lanka. I listened to one of the speeches of the owner of Kapruka. He said in his meeting, there are very few companies in Sri Lanka running the business without any borrowing from the bank. We are one of them. Okay? This guy can borrow a lot of money, lots of sales, lots of profit they declare, they pay lots of taxes to the inland revenue as well. They can go for huge loans. In fact, they don't need to go banks. They voluntarily offer them huge amount of money. If you want to start a project like this, then we are here to throw the money to the projects. Take the money, start your project. And this guy is not ready. I don't know if he is a risk taker or he is avoiding these uncertainties, but I know taking risk is not good in many terms, right? So some organizations they take risk, some others they don't. Okay, so in one culture, taking risk is eating rusk. In some other organization, taking risk is forbidden. It is illegal. They criminalize that. So that is what the meaning of it. Right. So how are you going to manage these things when you have a different stuff? Okay, so someone said the voice is too low. I don't know if that is the case for everyone. Let me put the voice a bit up. Right, so that is about the uncertainty. The masculinity and the femininity is about this. In some society, the society is man-dominated, okay? In some others, female-dominated. In some others, you have the equality. There's no differences between men and the female, okay? Men and the males, men and the females, right? Yeah, right. Men and the women, right? Uh, let's say you take the western part of the world where you have females and males, they work together and they all have the same equal rights and they all are subject to do every work the company has, right? But that's not the case in Middle East. That's not the case in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, we have a milder thing. We are more into we are having equalities in between males and females, but females have more rights than males in some terms. Okay, for example, in Sri Lankan context, females cannot be kept at workplace after 8 o'clock. I'm not updated with the labor law, but I think that was a law earlier. If you need some updated information, please go ahead and read it. I think 8 o'clock. After 8, you cannot keep any females at the workplace unless it is exempted by the labor law. Exemption is this: hospitals can keep nurses, garments you can keep garment workers, uh, airlines, hotel industry you can keep them. Okay, now the BPOs, business outsourcing, overseas companies. If you operate in Sri Lanka, you can keep those guys to work in terms in line with the overseas shifts timing. Okay, otherwise you can't. Right, this is because the Sri Lankan law respects females because of their weaknesses. They have to be safe at home. They can't be out after 8. Right, that's one thing. But in the UK, it doesn't happen. You would have seen young girls, females, that are allowed to work till midnight in a restaurant. They walk home alone after 10 o'clock. Sometimes some companies, they provide taxis. Sometimes they don't. So you have to walk home in the freezing weather condition alone. Right? The streets are not safe all the times. Right? That's one thing. That's different. And if you go to Middle East, it is a different story. Okay. So now the equality is very high in western part of the world. Equality is somewhat milder in Asian context, and you have more respect to females than the males in Middle East. Meaning, in some countries, I don't want to make mention of the country. If you have a female inside your car, a driver can drive the car without license in some Middle East countries. It is illegal to drive a car without license. But what happens is, when the police stops you, you tell the police you have a female inside the car, mother inside the car. Police cannot stop you. Police has to let you to go because the respect they give that woman. They can't. If they see the woman directly, that's a different story. So that the driver can get himself a female to keep in the car at the back and you drive a license. So this is how, because the distance is very big. Okay. So now the point is, in your HR management, how are you going to manage these two different or two, three different types of culture if you put workforce inside one organization from all these different cultures? How are you going to manage? Right? This is what the culture is about. Finally, the long-term, short-term orientation. Here, some companies, they won't work on any project or every project they do to make the money on the long run. Other companies, or some other companies, they want to do the project, do the work, get the profit on the short run. Okay, so long run and the short run. If I throw the money to the project today, I need to get my profit tomorrow. That is short-term orientation. Some other companies, they want to invest the money, wait for 4, 5, 6 years, and then cash it up later. These two different culture. Okay, now if you have people coming from long term, if you tell them to work on the short term, they're not going to work. And if you are on the short term, if you bring in the long term people, they're not going to accept your short term approaches as difficult, right? Okay, so finally, this is the theory. You may have to apply this in your assignments. Finally, I have a message for you. In your organization, what you do inside is your culture of the organization. How do you market? How do you make the payment? The payment that you do, if you make the payment on time on the 31st of each month or 30th of each month, last Friday of each month, that is your culture. Some companies, they pay it every Friday. Some companies, they pay every fortnight, every other week. Okay, some companies, they pay monthly. This is their culture. Okay, when you approach your customer, marketing, you have a culture. How do you speak to your customers? How do you meet those guys? Do you go to them or do they come to you? Do you speak to them over the phone or do you send them emails, all calls, emails, or do you visit them personally? It is culture. Okay, when customer orders something to you, if you deliver it today on time, on the same day delivery, it is your culture. If you deliver it the following, that is your culture. You promise someday and you deliver it later than that one, that is your culture. There are companies, you promise certain things to your customer, but you always deliver after the deadline. That is your culture. Nobody blames because that is how it is. Your customers may leave your organization fine, but your culture is that way. That is how you do, right? Uh, so anything that you do, okay, is part of your culture, your marketing, your accounts, your collections of money. Okay, now we have a culture to collect money from our students, and whereas if you go to some of the universities, they have different culture. Like some universities, they block the LMS, they block the lectures attendance to the students, not to come here until you make the payments. But we don't do that. That is our culture, this is their culture, right? So what you do inside your organization is your culture. Well, the problem is if you have good culture, people they want to come and work for you. If you have bad culture, people wouldn't come and work for you. Whoever the people you have inside your organization, they will leave you as well. Lose great people, valuable people because bad culture. Okay. And that is not about your workforce, it is about your customers as well. Your customers may leave you because you have bad culture. Okay, how do you speak to your customer? How do you meet your customer? The words that you use is part of your culture. It is part of your culture. So when you see a customer, the way you speak, if you have better way to treat your customer, uh, they'll come back to you. They'll recommend you to the others. Now I have experience. If you go to HSBC Bank, they come to you, they take your name, they sit you down to wait, and when the banker is ready, the banker comes to you. He or she receives you, take them to the cabin. They sit you down. Then they sit down on the computer. They deal with you. That is HSBC Bank. But if you go to another bank, another commercial bank, what they do, you have to wait on the queue. The banker is sitting in his cabin or in his table. You wait on the queue. They serve one by one. There's no that way. So the way they receive their customer is different to the way HSBC receives. The way they treat their customer is different to them. Now, if you ask a commercial bank staff to deal with an HSBC customer, you will definitely leave your customer. Customer will be missing. That's the last transaction he would do. And if you ask a commercial bank employee to do the way HSBC does, that commercial bank staff, the banker would say, I don't want to do this kind of respect to the customers. I'm not used to this. When I was working in commercial bank, these are these. I never get off from my seat. I sit down. With the customers, I serve them. Why should I get up and go to their place, bring them down, sit them down, and then I sit down? That's crazy. Right? So this is a problem, right? When the culture differ organization to organization, you have issues in dealing with your HR and your customers. Thank you very much for listening to me. And I'm really sorry to keep you waiting for extra half an hour because I started the class half an hour late. I speak to you soon. I see you in the next class very soon. Tomorrow, in fact. Have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.